Real quick, I'm going to have everyone in the group do introductions. We're going to share who we are, kind of why we're here, what our professional positions are, and anything else that we think might be relevant to the questions you might ask, and then we'll move on from there. I will start. My name is Christine Black. I'm currently the Assistant Director of the Office of Equity and Diversity up at the University of Scranton in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. In my professional capacity with the SVA, one day I stood up and told a bunch of people who were trying to talk about what they knew about student veterans that they were stupid and they didn't know the current generation. And the president of the SVA was there and thought I was very entertaining, and he keeps bringing me back. So that was actually the first time that because I was a little bit older and I'd gone to school earlier on in my military career, it was the first time I really dealt with SVA. And I was like, oh, we actually have an organized national organization. Since then, I've been lucky enough to be tapped a couple of times to work with the Leadership Institute. I've done some chapter leading at both of the schools that I've worked at. And then I work in a professional capacity with some organizations that are trying to develop some of the research around student veterans and how to better serve them. So with that, just because she is directly next to me on my screen, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley for her introduction.
Hello, good morning. So Ashley Gorbolja Maldonado. I am involved in SVA in a continuous capacity. My story begins when I had started an American Legion post at the University of Akron. In conjoint, I ended up helping start an SVA chapter. So this is now about 5 or 6 years ago. So to this day, I'm still involved with that post, with that university, and I've been able to enlarge the impact, if you will, for Northeast Ohio. Now I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm a public affairs specialist for the VA. So I've had the professional capacity to now take what I know as an SVA alumni and mentor, as well as a business professional and public affairs specialist to really let folks know what our generation is up to, what we need, what the facts are, and to really enrich and better the lives of student veterans. So it's been an honor to be both on the Veterans Benefit Administration side, where I work in education, and now on the Veterans Health Administration side, where I'm now helping in patient care services. So these really cool facets where I'm now a public speaker nationally and so many cool things. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Ashley. Tim, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. I'm still getting used to this virtual space of muting and unmuting. Good morning, SVA. Good morning, SVA. Good morning, NACON. I'm Timothy Jones. I am the Veteran Service Navigator for Veterans Leadership Program. It's a nonprofit organization here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And our mission is to help veterans navigate the transitions of their life. And so we assist veterans who are homeless, who are at risk of becoming homeless, or who are in need of supportive services. And during this time of COVID, our services have been greatly needed. I'm also the president and founder of Colorful Voices. It's a national training program that we do sexual assault rape prevention trainings. I am a male survivor of military sexual assault. So like Ashley, I travel the country and I share my story and I pour love and light. And it's a pleasure to continue to pour into you here at SVA. SVA has allowed me to be who I am in this space authentically with you. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Fontaine, would you like to go?
Sure. I'm just glad I'm not going last and not having to follow the great Bruno. But my name is Fontaine Stiegel. I live in Houston, Texas. I attended the University of Houston, where I was connected with Student Veterans of America. This was back in 2014 when we really didn't have veteran representation on campus. And we really needed a voice for our veterans. They were adding a new student center and was trying to basically put us in a small room in the basement for our veteran center. And we needed advocates to stand up for, what we needed for veterans. It wouldn't have been good to have veterans hearing they had a bowling center, right there, like hearing, bowling pins knock and, in a room with no windows, like would be very triggering moments for veterans, and they just didn't understand those needs. And so we heard about Student Veterans of America, formed our own chapter, and kind of started from there. I started as secretary, then vice president, and then president. When I was president, we won chapter of the year. And since then, I've just been, I guess, really on fire with SVA and really can see the difference that it makes in student veterans' lives. I, was able to see the engagement on campus increase and how it really helped having that camaraderie on campus. So anytime that Jared or SVA would call for needing, someone to speak here or there, I always, raised my hand and volunteered. I wanted to give back as much as, SVA has given to me. And I joined the SVA Board of Directors. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now on the board of directors, and it's just interesting to see how the organization works on the national level, and everything that goes into all the hard work that our SVA staff puts in, and how much the organization has grown. And I will continue to raise my hand and be a part of the organization.
Awesome. And last but not least, the very dapper Bruno.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's quite an honor and a privilege to be here, and also to sit on this panel alongside a handful of just outstanding veterans, student veterans that are and alumni that are still out there doing really good work. So again, my name is Bruno Moya. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 2001 to 2008. Then when I got out, it was a little bit confusing. I'm sure a lot of you can relate, or some of you can relate. Some of you are probably still in, but it was a little bit confusing for myself, and decided to attend school and kick off my education. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. That was a little bit of a struggle. Then I decided, you know what, I think I want to become a psychologist of some sorts. And my sister's a social worker. She's like, you know what, you should be a social worker. So I looked into that, and that made a lot of sense. So I'm glad I followed her footsteps and went into the social work route. So currently, I hold a position. I do a couple of different things, and they're all veteran related, or for the most part are veteran related. I am the Nevada ambassador for an organization called Save a Warrior. They're out of Ohio. It's a week-long retreat where they help veterans how to meditate and do all sorts of very interesting things to be able to get out of their heads at some times. I also am the president of the UNLV Veterans Alumni Club here in Las Vegas. And I just started with an organization called Merging Vets and Players, and I'm the program coordinator for them. Merging Vets and Players, what they do is they bring together combat veterans and professional athletes, or retired professional athletes, because both of those groups have transitioned from being warriors of some sorts, right, to now just like out, like all of us, trying to figure out what's next. And so transition can be hard. So we come together at this gym called Extreme Couture. If anybody knows who Randy Couture is, former MMA world champion. It's his gym. We get together there and work out for an hour, and then have what we call a huddle for an hour. So after a really hard workout, we sit together in a school circle and then just kind of talk it out. And it's amazing to be able to do that type of work and to continue to be of service for the community. Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who are out there in our audience, we do want you to participate and kind of direct where this conversation goes. We all know each other pretty well, so we can have conversation all day, but if you do have something specific that you're interested in sharing, or you're interested in asking with us, please feel free to put it in the chat. We're going to start off. I'm going to ask everyone on the panel, if anyone has a specific incident or specific kind of struggle that they want to talk about in terms of all of us as veterans advocates and really strong identifiers with our veteran identity, and balancing that, especially as we went through school, with student experience and then developing new skills and interests that maybe didn't necessarily jive or weren't traditionally assigned to the veteran identity. So is there anyone who would like to start?
I would love to start. So a little bit more about my background. I originally went to school and thought I was going to be a doctor. So I'm going to be a doctor. That's what I want to do, right? And by the time I had taken my first few classes, I was also in the National Guard, and I would be in the National Guard for the duration of like 7 years of school straight through. And I said, I'm going to be a doctor. I realized as I was taking these coursework that it wasn't necessarily for me. So I pivoted. I said, I'm going to be a physical therapist. So I kept, changing classes. I was balancing, being a sergeant, leading, supervising. I was taking on volunteer opportunities at the college. I was also running a community college veteran program. So I was commuting to Cleveland. I had family, responsibilities. I was doing all of these things, right? And I finally found that through the advocacy, through the programs, through my community outreach, through developing others, that my real passion and skills that I was really just kind of bolstering over the past few years were really my passion. And for a while, I felt that I had to really keep the blinders up, because at some point, right, society says check a box, like you need to get this degree in order to be successful. And, here's the top jobs, right? Like doctor, engineer, right? All of these things. And I realized that while I was trying to, keep my nose in the books and grind out getting this degree that didn't make me happy, all of the advocacy and the things that I was doing were making me very fulfilled. So here I am. I've already switched my major several times. And then I finally pivot one last time. And I end up getting 2 degrees. One that's, business aligned, if you will, organization supervision, something that complemented my time in service, as well as an education degree, because I found out I loved teaching, I loved inspiring people, and I loved making a difference. And I found that in my time working in higher education as a VA work study, SVA, American Legion, there was this altruistic bone in my body. And that was a skill and interest I didn't know necessarily was there outside of my Army values. I knew that, integrity, personal courage, all of the above were a part of me, but I didn't realize that selfless service was my key identifier, my skill set that I had built and spent time and years developing. And I found that my second service was going to be a better and even more powerful outlet than I had ever imagined. And the next thing I know, I'm catapulting myself into public health, where I'm studying military families. And now I'm pursuing my second master's with the University of San Francisco in public leadership, so that I can continue to serve my community, my second service. So that's kind of how my veteran identity, my advocacy, and a bit of my school experience and work experiences all kind of came together collectively.
Awesome. Ashley, am I correct? You've been out just a little over a year, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to pivot from Ashley, who's really at the beginning of her journey, to one of our other panelists. Tim, I'm going to tap you because I think either you or I have been out the longest, but I'm pretty sure it's you. And so I know how long your journey has been, and I think you've done an amazing arc during that. I was wondering if you'd like to share any of that.
I'd be more than happy to share with that. So my journey, I've been out since December 5th of 2000. I spent 27 months in the military. When I walked onto my campus, I didn't have an identity. It was extremely fractured. And that's because after being assaulted, I had a 10-year bout of homelessness, drug and alcohol addiction, and it was on my third suicide attempt to complete suicide is when I made a decision to transform my life, which led me to jail. And then from there, I got out and I entered a homeless veteran program, and I walked onto the campus of Pensacola State College. At that point, broken, not trusting, and didn't really have a feel for the veteran space. And that was my introduction to SVA. During a barbecue, they were just like, there's this group of veterans getting together, and I'm proud of my service, and I wanted to join and wanted to attach myself to just wonderful people. I didn't know at that moment how big that transformation was going to be. And from there, I ended up, we were in Google headquarters for the first Leadership Institute, but it was there that I ended up connecting with 50, top student veterans who just really poured into me. And it was the first time in a very, very long time that that the thought of veteran was as brother and sister. It was the thought that I felt that we were when I decided to join in the first place. And it wasn't the image that I was left with when I left Japan. And so it was really tough to figure out that identity. Am I a Black man? Am I a gay man? Am I a veteran? Am I homeless? But I'm all of those things. And it was through SVA and through that stewardship and through that connection, that connective tissue, that it really allowed me to live in my authentic self and to live and own the skin that I'm in. As an advocate today for survivors of sexual assault and those who have experienced homeless or are experiencing homelessness or have had suicidal ideation, it's because of SVA that I want to be that light, continue to be that light for others who may walk on campus not knowing. My goal wasn't to really ever to get a degree. It was just to survive. When I joined campus, it was about, I want to be able to look at someone else, another male, and not think that they were going to attack me, or I'm going to go onto campus and not feel that I'm going to be judged for my past when no one knew what that was. But it was because I made those steps, then I discovered my passion for speaking, my passion for people, and really wanting to that service, that servitude that I think we all have as veterans, and as individuals that serve. And so I'm so grateful that I've had this experience. It's been a 20+ year journey, Christine. It didn't just magically happen. There was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of learning from mistakes and then evolving. But it's been an amazing and a beautiful process. The fact that I'm even here speaking to you right now speaks to the power of when you stay connected and you stay engaged and you have a thriving chapter, not even just a chapter, a presence, what can happen, because it can transform lives.
I'm not sure who can follow that, but Fontaine, Bruno, do either of you, I can kind of follow off because Tim and I have worked together before in other capacities as speakers, but Fontaine, Bruno, do either of you have anything you want to share?
I can go really quickly. It just warms my heart when I hear about Tim's story, because he's just such an incredible person. But what I learned through my student experience, initially when I was, SVA was first starting out at my campus, it was a lot of, our first year, it was just a lot of activities, so more social activities that we were doing. And, they were great and they were getting people involved. But, as I, transitioned, I was the one who went to the leadership, the regional, now I'm forgetting the name of it. What is it, Christine? The regional summit, I'm sorry, yes. The regional summit and the Leadership Institute. And I started to, gain skills where I was like, there's more that we can do versus just the tailgating and just the happy hours and stuff like that. So I really wanted to, focus on professional development for our chapter because our student experience is going to end and we need to get a job after this, it's nice to, gather with fellow veterans and have that fellowship. but what's next? And are we building those skills for the next step? And I think a lot of times, sometimes we want to hold on to the past and what we did in the military, and we should be proud of it, but let's build upon that. That was, the turning point for me and became my focus. So, I tried to connect with employers and recruiters, and just have, different activities. Also connecting with other organizations on campus that, you can learn from. We partnered with the Israeli Student Association and had a movie night where they played a movie, I think it's called Beneath the Helmet, where it focused on Israeli soldiers who, their first few years in the military, because every Israeli has to serve in the military. And so it was just a cool event to connect with another, a different culture, but still have that connection of service. And, just different things like that. Like, it wasn't just all about happy hours, So just it definitely changed my perspective and set me up for the next step, which was, networking and getting a job and, just being successful in the future. So that's what I took away from it.
Awesome. Bruno, I know you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, well, first, Tim, man, every time I hear your story, I just get so inspired by your transition and what you've been able to create, and just sitting in a panel again next to you and Fontaine and everybody else, man, it's just amazing. So one of the things that I really that I was taught a few years ago is just creating new snapshots of who you are. And also you can view the snapshots of who you used to be, like in the military. You were in the military, but now life moves on. You can identify as a veteran, that's great. But you can't act like you're an infantryman in the United States Marine Corps out here in Las Vegas, because that's not going to be ideal, So sometimes you learn the hard way. But recently, I came across this bit of wisdom that I think mirrors what all of us are saying, and kind of what it's been, I think, safe to say, most of our path. And I have to read it because I haven't memorized it yet. But it's when you become helpless, you become hopeless. However, when you become helpful, you become hopeful. And one of my things is always being always keeping hope and motivation and drive and all of that. Sometimes my kid, when she's having a rough day, she knows she can always come and talk to me, and she sometimes gets a little upset because it's like it's always full of positivity and like, oh, you have a really bad day or something really bad happens. My mindset is always good. I'm glad that those things are happening to us, because they can either happen to us or they can happen for us. And that's the type of mindset that I try to instill in the people that are in my life and in myself too, because sometimes it's really easy to think about certain things that occur to us. So with that, it's my transition into education has been wonderful, because I've had that mentality that everybody was talking about, just being of service, trying to help out, creating something, looking for gaps and then just filling them in. There was a lot of mistakes that we made. Like, we made events where only like one person would show up, so there were more people that created the events than there were people that from the campus, student veterans. So it's just like trying to figure all this stuff out. And I think that was part of the journey that was so worthwhile, is trying to figure that out. And then, coming out of it, because you stayed consistent and learning all those things and now applying them to your life after military service, post education, and all this other stuff. Like they, you know, you stay connected, you stay relevant, and you know, you learn a lot as long as you pay attention.
So I'm going to wrap up this question real quick with just a short story from real early in my law school career, because I kind of alluded to this earlier, but when I was in undergrad, student veterans weren't really a cohesive force on campuses. I did my undergrad at University of Nevada, Reno, and then finished it up at University of Maryland, College Park. And we were on campus, but we kind of got lumped under ROTC, as I'm sure some campuses out there can sympathize with. But when I got to law school, it was a really different experience for me, because while I was in undergrad, I was still in the military. Well, I came home from a deployment in the middle of July 2012, and then I stayed on my best friend's couch for 2 weeks. I drove cross country, and 10 days later, I started law school at the University of Colorado. I had never been to Colorado before, but if the Army's going to pay for me to live somewhere for 3 years, Colorado seems like a pretty fun place to live. And my assumption was at the time that I'd be getting back in. I'd done 3 deployments. I'd been guard my whole career. I'd been activated or deployed for all but 15 days out of my 10 years. So I really didn't know anything else in my life. And my ETS hit about 3 weeks after school started. And I was just kind of adrift initially, but I had this driving force that I was going to get back in. I was going to become a JAG officer. I was going to continue to serve my soldiers as an NCO at heart, but I was just going to serve them in a different capacity. And I went to this veterans clinic because I signed up for everything they did in the law school that related to the Military Law Society or related to the Veterans Center. And I was involved in other groups that reflected my identity. I was involved with the Hispanic National Bar Association. I was involved with the Outlaws, which is the LGBTQ group. I was involved in the public service group, but I really at first clung to that veterans group, that Military Law Society group. And so I went to this clinic and I got assigned to work with a full-fledged attorney who was not a veteran and was an older white male who had gone straight from, we called him kindergarten to JD. So we had very, very different experiences. And on top of that, he's an international tax law attorney. And I'm like, there is absolutely nothing I can learn from this man. And I would kill myself if I had to look at numbers all day. That's why I went to law school. But we sat in this room with this older vet who I think he was a Vietnam era vet. And he talked him down from wanting to file charges against his wife for charging him with domestic violence to agreeing to go to counseling and agreeing to start AA, and talking him through, what do you have to do in your life to develop a relationship with your kids, to actually in some way fix whatever this relationship is with your wife. And I'd never seen a skill set like that. But I'd also never had a mentor who did not reflect my identity, whether that was military, whether that was a female, whether that was Latinx, whatever that identity was. I'd never had somebody where I looked at them and I said, they're where I want to be. And so that was a really unique experience for me, because it was definitely advocacy around the Veterans Center. It was definitely working with veterans, but it was this person where if I ended up where they were in life, I would be really unhappy with it. But they had the skill set that I wanted. And I was like, I'm going to work with this person. And so I actually reached out to them and said, hey, can you talk me through what just happened in that room? Because I want to do that skill set. I want to be able to talk to people about what their actual problem is and not just what they bring in. I want to be able to break down their issues in the way that I watched you do with this very, very angry person. And that was really the beginning of me recognizing that there were things in my life that I wanted to do that I could not get from the military, and I could not just get from other vets. And I'm sure there was a veteran somewhere that had that skill set, but this was the person I'd seen do it, and they'd done it in the way I wanted to replicate. So that was a really big milestone for me in the time where I started not just exploring other interests, but recognizing that there were skill sets that I might not recognize as valuable that other people could actually help me with. With that, I'm going to bring that question to the close. I apologize, we just lost one of our presenters. He has to move on to the next session already. But for the 4 of us that are still here, Ashley, I don't know that you can answer this one, so I'm going to tag Fontaine and Bruno. Real quick, like 3 sentences or less, how do I become a Leadership Institute mentor?
Bruna.
All right, I'll take this one. How do you become a Leadership Institute mentor? I don't know if you can put that in 3 sentences, and that's already one. So, well, first is being relevant and staying connected. and putting a lot of what you want to do, putting a lot of the things that you want to accomplish, and making sure that if those things align with where your university is at, with where SVA is at, then just pushing forward and creating your own way too. I think that's really important. One of the things that I did was advocacy in policy and stuff like that, and I had to create my own way in doing so. And I think because I did that, I got noticed, although I wasn't trying to get noticed, but that's just, you know, what happened. And that really helped. So create your own way. You know, if you want to accomplish something, do it, and just do it your way.
You're on mute, Christine, sorry.
Would it be a Zoom meeting if we didn't have to tell someone they were on mute? I think that actually reflects both Fontaine and my experience. We come from very different backgrounds. Fontaine was on the board and a Leadership Institute mentor. I was, as I kind of alluded to earlier in a joke, I literally stood up in a conference that was ongoing and told people that their research was out of date and that they didn't understand the current generation of veterans, and added myself to the panel that was speaking. And as I said, Jared thought it was really funny, so he invited me to come to the Leadership Institute. And my first year, I was actually backup mentor. And so I literally just kind of stepped in for whoever needed someone that day because they had to step out for something.
You were awesome too. I remember that.
Yeah, I was run off my feet those whole 3 days because I was not used to the pace of Leadership Institute. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone 10 seconds to think about this one. I apologize for everyone else on the panel. They're just seeing these questions for the first time. I recently got added to my presidential search committee for my college. What do you think are the most pressing veteran issues to present? And I'm gonna go first while everyone else kind of stews on this, because I actually work in higher education. And I think one of the things that veterans underestimate is their ability to advocate outside the Veteran Center. And what I mean is every veteran has a major, right, that maybe not other veterans are in, or they have other identity centers that they work with, or maybe they access CTLE. We have a lot of social, I apologize, CTLE on my campus is where you get accommodations for learning disability or physical disability or anything else that you need assistance with. I should have been clear in my terminology. We have a lot of social cachet and people listen to us. And so it shouldn't just be, how do I press veterans issues? Because a lot of times veterans issues specifically get boiled down to, what do I do if I have someone with PTSD in my class? And how do I help people work? So the things that I'm seeing at the national level is using your veteran experience and that cachet that comes with sitting in a room and saying, hey, I served, to advocate not just for the services inside the Veteran Center, but the things that can be improved outside the Veteran Center that veterans access, but other students access to. Because there's going to be issues out there if you start talking to other programs that just aren't getting airtime that you can bring forward. And that might have a huge impact on your population. The other thing I see a lot of, and this is, I'm going to steal a friend of mine's quote, which is, if you walk into a Veteran Center and it looks like a recruiting center, they're not doing their job. That Veteran Center, Fontaine alluded to it earlier, you get 2 to 4 years to transition, depending on how many credits you have, depending on what program you're in. You get 2 to 4 years to figure out how you're going to function in the real world. Your Veteran Center needs to be focused not just on celebrating veterans' identity, but on bringing forth programs and things, working with alumni to ensure that when you graduate, you are ready to function as a veteran who is now a civilian, who is an engineer, who is an attorney, who's a sociologist, who's a social worker, whatever that is. And so really, the focus should not just be on honoring veterans, but it should be on transforming veterans into who they want to be. And with that, I'm going to actually tag Bruno next, because I know he also works in higher ed with me, and then we'll go from there.
Christine, that was awesome. Can you repeat the question again so I get it down right?
Yes, I recently got added to the presidential search committee for my college. What do you think the most pressing veteran issues are to present?
Yeah, great. So I think somebody that, I think you hit all the really good points, is being able to find somebody that can help people transition from out of the military and into civilian life, into higher education. But more than anything is somebody that can help help you discover who you truly are. Because I think that when we're walking around in a professional business, or whenever we get hired somewhere, wherever we are, where we want to be, right? Like if we don't really know, if we haven't really truly discovered ourselves, a little bit of like, who am I, what do I want out of life, all of those little things that really matter, then, you're going to go to school for something, and you're probably going to discover that sometimes it's not really what you wanted to go to school for. So somebody that can truly help you, or a center that can truly help you find out the skill sets that you do have, the skill sets that you've possessed while in service, or transition. You can transition those things into the civilian world. There's a lot of things that I always do, that I learned in the Marine Corps Infantry, that I apply now. So it's those little things that somebody can help you realize, or a center that can help you realize that although your military service is in the past, and for some of you are still active duty or in the reserves or National Guard, but there's a lot of things that can help you develop who you are. So I think a center does best when they give students the opportunity to truly thrive on who they want to be and who they want to become.
Awesome. Fontaine, as someone I know who started their chapter, if I remember correctly, do you have anything else you think was really important when you were advocating for that?
Hold on, what was the original question again?
The student is on their presidential search committee, and so they're trying to figure out what issues they want to be putting forward.
Right. So, veteran issues, I think we always try to boil them down to the PTSD or stuff like that, but we're so diverse. So I think it's really critical to listen to your chapter members and really find out what are their true issues. Do they have, trouble with a particular professor, or, are they feeling isolated on campus, or do they feel like, they need advocacy, different things like that. I think it's important to really get to know your members and what their needs are, because as a leader, you're just that voice for your members. I would always consider that first before, thinking that or assuming something. Definitely talk and poll your members on what's the pressing issues.
And I'm going to tag on that and say, also find those people that aren't showing up, because if they aren't showing up, there's probably a reason, whether that's they don't feel included, they're struggling with the veteran identity, whatever that is. But if you have access to the list of people who receive GIA benefits, or you can get somebody to send an email out and say, hey, here's a free anonymous place to submit issues to me, something like that, where you can actually tag the people who aren't just using the center, because you also want to find those people who are out finding those skills and finding those other communities that they now belong in that they never did, or they were never comfortable while they were in the service. So I know we're getting real close to the end. We've only got about 3 minutes left. I don't have any more questions in the chat. So what I'm going to ask of all my panelists is if we have any last pieces of advice you'd like to give folks, either, I know Ashley, as you're starting your transition, Bruno, Fontaine, as you make that transition further along into that professional career.
Well, I just wanted to say, staying connected is truly important, even after graduation. I encourage you to reach back to your chapter and, become a sounding board for them. I'm sure they're going to have some of the same issues that you went through as a chapter leader. And it's just important to reach out and give back, because more than likely they're not going to reach out to you. They're just going to try to figure it out on on their own. So reaching out to them is super important, and it's a way to stay connected and build that alumni network. And I do know, as being on the board of directors, that we do have our strategic plan in place where we are building our alumni network. We're going to be rolling out some things to really get us all connected and form a strong alumni network for SVA. So look for that.
Awesome. Bruno?
Awesome. Yeah. Lastly, I would say just stay connected. Just keep showing up. That's the hardest part, I think, is showing up. Many times that I didn't really want to do something, or I just wanted to stay home, or whatever the case was, but then I got out of bed and showed up, and it's all worth it when you show up, and you go. You try to make the best out of it. You make your own way. Like, I think that's one of the things that I really try to harp on here, is trying to discover what you really want out of life, and create your own path. You got a lot of people that you want to emulate, and that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, create who you want to become, and create your own way. And you'll look back and be like, man, this was worth it. So.
Okay, Ashley, and then I'll close out.
All right. I would say the best piece of advice, the kind of caveat on my two other panelists here, is, you are your own best advocate. And, when it comes down to figuring out what you want to do, take the opportunity to try new things. I've always told folks that, we are our own builders, right? Whether we're in the higher education space or with SVA or Legion or another VSO, we can help build programs, we can help build communities and people. And I really, truly believe that when we step out of our comfort zone, that is when we do the most growth, and adopting a growth mindset. And to all of the opportunities that are presented to you, try something new, step out and see what works for you. I never would have found out my true passions if I had not stepped out of my comfort zone. And know that, like, self-sabotage is a real thing. So, like, don't be too quick to talk yourself out of something. It's really hard to defeat an enemy with an outpost inside your head. So step outside of your comfort zone, be a community advocate, think big, right? Not just sometimes on campus, right? Sometimes we're just a microcosm, but really we can solve our community's problems, right? We can be that solution. So I just want to say that would be my advice.
Awesome. I will close out the session. I know everyone needs to step away. The two things I will say, I'm actually going to steal them from the last time a group asked me to do their graduation speech. One, don't let the military be the coolest thing you ever did. If you are 40 years old and the coolest thing you can ever say you did was got paid to throw a couple of sim grenades, you missed out on a lot of opportunities somewhere. And then two, don't be afraid to own who you are, even in spaces where you assume there's no one like you, or spaces where you assume your identity doesn't fit. Own that you're that veteran in that LGBTQ space, own that you're a member of the queer community in that veteran space. You'll be amazed how many doors you open for other people, how many doors you open for yourself. Thank you all so much for your time. I believe that is the end of our panel period. If you have any questions or you want to follow up with anyone on the panel, please feel free to reach out to us. All of us love to mentor and work with folks who are where we were a year, 2 years, or 3 years ago. So feel free to contact us, LinkedIn or through SVA. And thank you all so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.